Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something that millions of Americans are feeling, but very few truly understand. The slow disappearance of the American middle class. This isn't a sudden collapse. There was no single moment when everything broke. Instead, it's been happening quietly, year after year, paycheck after paycheck. For decades, the middle class was the backbone of America. It wasn't about being rich. It was about stability, a steady job, a home, healthcare, education for your children, and the belief that if you worked hard enough, life would slowly get better. But today, that promise feels weaker than ever. So the question is simple. Why is America's middle class slowly disappearing? To understand this, we need to go back. Not centuries ago, not even to the Great Depression. We need to go back to a time many people still remember fondly, the decades after World War II. During this period, America experienced something rare in history. Economic growth was strong. Wages increased alongside productivity. Manufacturing jobs paid enough to support entire families. You didn't need a college degree to live a decent life. One income was often enough. Factories, unions, and long-term employment created stability. People stayed in the same jobs for decades. Pensions existed. Healthcare was manageable. This was the golden age of the American middle class. But this system didn't last forever. Starting in the late 1970 seconds and accelerating through the 1980 seconds and 1990 seconds, something began to change. Globalization. Companies realized they could produce goods cheaper overseas. Manufacturing jobs slowly left the United States. Factories closed. Communities built around them began to fade. At the same time, technology started replacing human labor. Machines didn't need breaks. Software didn't ask for raises. Productivity kept rising, but wages stopped keeping up. This is one of the most important details people miss. America didn't stop producing wealth. It produced more than ever. But that wealth stopped flowing evenly. While corporate profits increased, worker wages stayed mostly flat. Over time, the gap grew wider, and the middle class felt it first. Then came the shift in job security. Long-term employment turned into short-term contracts. Benefits were cut. Pensions were replaced with personal responsibility. The message changed. Instead of companies taking care of workers, workers were told to take care of themselves. Save more, learn more, adapt faster. But here's the problem. The cost of living didn't slow down. Housing became more expensive. Healthcare costs exploded. Education turned into long-term debt. The same lifestyle that once required one income now requires two, or sometimes three. And even then, it's barely enough. Many Americans today aren't poor, but they're not secure either. They're one medical bill away from crisis, one job loss away from debt, one emergency away from collapse. This is what makes the middle class so fragile now. It's not just about income, it's about stability, and stability is disappearing. But economics is only part of the story. Another major force reshaping the middle class is automation. Jobs that once required human hands are now done by machines and algorithms. From factories to offices, automation is quietly changing the labor market. Some jobs disappear completely. Others are replaced by lower-paying alternatives. At the same time, new jobs require higher skills, more education, and more debt just to qualify. This creates a divide. Those who can adapt quickly move ahead. Those who can't fall behind. And the middle class sits right in the middle of this pressure. Too wealthy to qualify for assistance. Too poor to absorb rising costs. This is where frustration begins to grow. People work just as hard as their parents did, sometimes harder, but they don't get the same results. And that feeling that something is wrong is spreading. Because the American dream wasn't supposed to work like this. When people talk about the middle class disappearing, they often blame individuals. They say people don't work hard enough anymore, that they spend too much, that they made bad choices. But the truth is far more complicated. Because even when people do everything right, the system itself has changed. Let's talk about housing. For much of the 20th century, owning a home was the single biggest source of middle-class wealth. Homes were affordable, mortgages were manageable, and over time, property values slowly increased. Buying a home wasn't just shelter, it was security. But today, housing tells a very different story. In many American cities, home prices have risen far faster than wages. Rent has increased year after year. Down payments feel impossible for first-time buyers. For younger generations, home ownership is no longer a milestone. It's a distant dream. And without owning property, building long-term wealth becomes extremely difficult. Then there's healthcare. Decades ago, medical care was expensive, but it was still within reach. Today, healthcare costs are one of the biggest threats to middle-class stability. Insurance premiums rise, deductibles increase, out-of-pocket costs pile up. Even people with decent jobs fear getting sick. One serious illness can wipe out years of savings. One accident can push a family into debt. This constant risk creates stress, and stress changes how people live. They save less. They spend more cautiously. They delay major life decisions. Marriage, children, home ownership, all of it gets pushed further into the future. Education was once seen as the solution. Go to college, get a degree, move into the middle class. For a while, that worked. But over time, education became more expensive, and its promise became less certain. Student debt exploded. Millions of Americans started their adult lives already in debt, not from luxury, but from trying to qualify for better jobs. And while some degrees still pay off, many do not. Graduates find themselves underemployed, working jobs that don't require their education, while carrying loans that follow them for decades. This creates another pressure point on the middle class. Higher expectations, higher costs, less security. Then there's the shift in benefits. In the past, employers offered pensions, guaranteed retirement income. Today, those pensions are mostly gone. Instead, workers are told to manage their own retirement. Invest wisely, plan early, take responsibility. But this assumes people have extra money to invest. Many don't. When wages barely cover living expenses, saving for retirement becomes a luxury. As a result, financial anxiety follows people throughout their lives. Not just when they're young, but well into middle age. And this anxiety compounds. People avoid risks. They stay in jobs they dislike. They feel trapped. This is how the middle class slowly erodes. Not through one dramatic collapse, but through constant pressure. Pressure that squeezes choice, freedom, and optimism. And when optimism fades, something deeper begins to break. Another major force slowly reshaping the American middle class is the changing nature of work itself. For a long time, work meant stability. You learned a skill, joined a company, and built a career. Not just a job, a path. That path is disappearing. Today, work is increasingly temporary, flexible, and uncertain. Short-term contracts replace long-term roles. Gig work replaces steady employment. And flexibility often comes at the cost of security. On paper, this looks like freedom. Work when you want. Choose your hours. Be your own boss. But in reality, many workers have little choice. Gig work rarely includes benefits. No health insurance. No paid leave. No retirement plans. Income fluctuates from month to month. Some months are good. Others are barely enough. This unpredictability makes long-term planning almost impossible. It's hard to buy a home when your income isn't stable. It's hard to save for retirement when you don't know what next month will look like. And it's hard to feel secure when your livelihood depends on algorithms you don't control. Technology plays a huge role here. Automation and artificial intelligence have increased efficiency, but they've also reduced the need for human labor in many industries. Jobs didn't disappear overnight. They changed. One position becomes 3 lower-paying ones. Full-time roles turn into part-time gigs. Responsibility increases while compensation stays the same. At the same time, expectations rise. Workers are expected to be constantly available, to learn new tools on their own time, to compete globally. This creates constant pressure. The middle class is squeezed between two forces. On one side, low-wage work with little security. On the other, high-skilled jobs requiring advanced education and constant adaptation. Falling in the middle means falling behind. Then there's inflation. Inflation doesn't affect everyone equally. For wealthy individuals, higher prices are inconvenient. For middle-class families, they are destabilizing. Groceries cost more. Fuel costs more. Utilities rise. Insurance increases. But wages don't rise at the same pace. So people adjust. They downsize. They delay purchases. They cut back on quality of life. Vacations disappear. Savings shrink. Emergency funds vanish. And once savings are gone, every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. This is how people fall out of the middle class. Not through reckless spending, but through exhaustion, through constant compromise. Another overlooked factor is debt. Debt has become normal. Credit cards cover gaps between paychecks. Loans replace savings. Buy now, pay later becomes survival, not convenience. Debt creates a sense of movement, but it's often just treading water. You're working, paying bills, staying busy, yet not moving forward. For many families, income hasn't collapsed. It just hasn't grown enough to keep up, and that difference matters. Because the middle class isn't defined by income alone. It's defined by momentum, the belief that tomorrow will be better than today. When that belief fades, people change. They lose trust in institutions. They question the value of hard work. They feel disconnected from the future. This emotional shift is just as important as the financial one. A shrinking middle class creates social tension. People feel overlooked, ignored, left behind. And when large groups of people feel this way, it affects politics, culture, and social stability. Not because people are angry by nature, but because insecurity breeds frustration. This isn't about laziness. It isn't about poor character. It's about a system that demands more, while offering less in return. And this is why the middle class feels like it's disappearing. Because it's no longer protected. It's exposed. Exposed to market swings. Exposed to medical emergencies. Exposed to technological change. And without strong buffers, even small shocks can push people downward. But this story isn't finished yet. The middle class has adapted before, and it may adapt again. The question is whether the system will change fast enough to support that adaptation, or whether the pressure will continue until the middle disappears entirely. There is another layer to this story that often goes unnoticed, and it has nothing to do with numbers on a spreadsheet. It has to do with expectations. For generations, Americans were raised with a simple belief. If you worked hard, played by the rules, and stayed consistent, life would gradually improve. That belief shaped how people planned their lives. They took risks. They bought homes. They started families. They invested in their communities. But today, that belief feels uncertain. Many people are doing exactly what they were told to do. Working long hours, gaining skills, staying employed. Yet they feel like they're running in place. And when effort stops matching reward, motivation begins to fade. This shift is especially visible across generations. Older generations often compare today's struggles to their own early years and say, "We had it hard too," and they're not wrong. But the rules were different. Tuition was lower. Housing was cheaper. Healthcare was manageable. And wages, while not high, grew steadily. Today's middle class faces a different equation. Costs rise faster than income. Debt starts earlier. And safety nets are thinner. So when younger workers fall behind, it's not because they're less capable. It's because the margin for error is much smaller. One wrong decision, one illness, one layoff, that's all it takes. Another major pressure on the middle class is the concentration of opportunity. Economic growth still exists in America, but it's not evenly distributed. Certain cities thrive, certain industries expand, certain skill sets are rewarded. Meanwhile, entire regions stagnate. Small towns lose jobs. Local businesses struggle. Young people leave. Those who can move do. Those who can't remain stuck. This creates a geographic divide within the middle class itself. Opportunity becomes tied to location, and relocation becomes a requirement, not a choice. But moving is expensive. It requires savings, flexibility, and risk tolerance. Once again, the middle class is caught in the middle. Not poor enough to receive help, not wealthy enough to relocate easily. Then there's the psychological toll. Living with constant financial pressure changes how people think. Short-term decisions replace long-term planning. Survival replaces growth. People delay retirement planning. They postpone healthcare. They push through stress and burnout. This isn't just an economic issue. It's a health issue. Chronic stress leads to physical illness. Mental health struggles increase. Productivity declines, and the cycle feeds itself. Another overlooked factor is time. Time used to belong to the middle class. Weekends existed. Vacations mattered. Work ended when the day ended. Now, time is fragmented. Emails arrive at night. Side hustles fill weekends. Rest feels unproductive. People are always on, but rarely moving ahead. This constant pressure leaves little room for creativity, learning, or recovery. And without those things, upward mobility becomes harder. Social mobility, the ability to move up, is one of the defining features of a strong middle class. When that mobility slows, the middle class weakens. Children grow up watching their parents struggle, and they adjust their expectations accordingly. They aim lower. They play safer. They fear risk instead of embracing it. This is how inequality becomes generational. Not through inheritance alone, but through learned limitation. The middle class was never just about money. It was about confidence in the future. Confidence that effort would pay off. Confidence that life would improve. Confidence that stability was achievable. As that confidence fades, so does the middle class. But this decline isn't inevitable. History shows that economic systems evolve. Policies change. Industries adapt. New opportunities emerge. The question is not whether the middle class can survive. It's whether society chooses to protect it. Strong middle classes don't happen by accident. They are built through deliberate choices. Choices about wages, about education, about healthcare, about housing, about worker protections. Without those choices, market forces alone tend to concentrate wealth, not distribute it. And when that happens, the middle class shrinks. This brings us to the most important point. The disappearance of the middle class is not a mystery. It is the result of long-term trends, slow decisions, and systems designed for efficiency, not resilience. Understanding this doesn't solve the problem overnight, but it changes the conversation. Because once people understand what's happening, they stop blaming themselves. And that awareness is the first step toward change. So where does this leave the American middle class? Not vanished, not defeated, but under pressure. The middle class has survived wars, recessions, and massive economic change before, and it has adapted each time. What makes this moment different is the speed of change and the lack of stability beneath it. The future of the middle class will depend on choices made today by governments, by businesses, and by society as a whole. It will depend on whether growth is shared, whether opportunity is accessible, and whether stability is valued as much as efficiency. Because a strong middle class isn't just an economic category. It's a foundation. It supports communities. It fuels innovation, and it holds societies together. Without it, inequality grows, trust erodes, and the future becomes uncertain. Understanding these forces matters, not to create fear, but to create awareness. And awareness is where real change begins. If you found this documentary useful, if it helped you see the bigger picture, then consider supporting the channel. Here on Control Narrative, we create long-form documentaries that explore power, systems, and the forces shaping modern life. Without noise, without hype. Subscribe to the channel to stay informed and to join a community that values understanding over reaction. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next documentary.